it's Chrissy here from the Creative Eclectic. Today I'm going to talk to you about using the negative parts of your die cuts. A couple of weeks ago I was playing with the Ranunculus Romance set, I think that's how you say it, from the new Stamping Up January 20 to June 2022 mini catalogue. Anyway, I cut these die cuts and I had some left over and I just couldn't throw them away because I'd cut them so well. And so I'm just doing a little card. I haven't prepped this before, so I'm just going to show you how you can use this. I'm going to grab my Misty Meadow ink pad. I've got a piece of very vanilla cardstock. I've also got my card base, which is half of an A4 sheet in Mossy Meadow as well. So I've got my blending brush. Now you could use a sponge dauber for this. Going to grab my a bit of masking tape, just so that this doesn't move. Pop it up the top. Now I want to make sure that I don't cover the cut out bits of the leaves. I'm going to put a bit along here. So if I am a bit, what do you call it, overzealous with my blending, it's not going to matter all that much. So I'll just tap my blending brush in and just, now I'm doing this on the reverse side. I'm just going to use my die cut negative for the project as well, so I'm just using the reverse side. Now these little bits here, they move, so if you want to push them out the way, you can. I actually think they are good pushed out the way. Of course I didn't bring my glue over. Okay. Well, I'm not going to do too much with them. Not too much blending at all. Just a little bit. I just don't want it too heavy. I just want mainly the outline. And don't forget to do the stems of your leaves. Right. Now, take that off. And sometimes your masking tape will pull a little bit on your cardstock. I'm not particularly worried about the cardstock, the Mossy Meadow, because this is the back, as I said, of it. So let's take that off. So you can see I've just blended those. So you can use basically use the negative of your die cut as a stencil. So the other thing I'm going to do is, because I want it to be a sort of a vintage card. Now I'm just going to get, I've got a sponge dauber. You could use, my sponge dauber's on its way out. It's probably about 10 years old, so it's a bit rough. But I'm just sponging around the edge to give it that vintage sort of a look. And because my sponge job is very, very rough and is actually destined for the bin because it's probably about 10 or 12 years old, it's leaving some extra bits on there. So you could sponge job it this way as well. And I'm not worried about it being tidy because it's a vintage look. Now, I'm going to grab my scissors. I'm just going to rough up the edges as well. It makes an awful noise and I'm sorry. I like this shabby sort of look, like the distressing, and it doesn't matter if it tears, so because it's all part of that distressing. If you wanted to, you could also go over the edges with your mossy meadow as well. I haven't got a lot of ink left on my mossy meadow, but that's okay. All right, so next up, I'm going to grab my glue, which is still on the other table, so give me a second. And I'm going to glue this piece on. I might actually distress the edges of that as well. Just to... Now, if you don't want to distress the edges, that's quite all right. Just be careful where it's where there's edges. And you could even crinkle it up a bit to give it a bit more distressing. And we'll see. This is an experiment, so we're going to see how this goes. And what I like to do when I've crinkled something up like this, actually flatten it out again and get my ink pad and my blending brush or my sponge dauber and just pop it over the top, just to give it some extra texture. Like you can just dab it on. Okay. Just wipe that off. So I don't get ink where I don't want it. All right. I'm not sure where my silicone craft mat is at the moment, so I'm just going to use a piece of acetate that I have. I'm just going to pop some glue on. So I'm not putting the glue too close to the edges because I don't want it to ooze. I find with this glue, less is more. So this is a Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. Okay. I'm going to pop this on. press it down. If you wanted to, you could cut these little bits out if you didn't want them there. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do to make it a bit more distressed is I'm going to take my card base and I'm just going to grab my Mossy Meadow ink pad and I'm just going to swipe it. Okay, now this swiping it across the ink pad just adds a bit of darker colour. Like if you wanted to, because this is going to cover up most of it, you could just go completely down on the thing, but I just like the whole swiping thing. Makes it a little bit less mess. Okay. Right. So this is a good way to make sure that your die cuts or aren't wasted. Oh, look, I've got ink all over my fingers already. Now, it probably needs a sentiment. And I was thinking that this would be a good sympathy card for a man. But I've got this special moments stamp set, and this is one of the free ones you can get during celebration. But I think that I'm gonna think about that a little bit more. But what I will do is I've got my stamping right marker and I want to make some splashes. I'm just going to flick it in the lid like that, flick it down, and you could cover that other side. I don't know that you need to. I just think it's pretty cool. Now this works best if you've got a newish sort of marker. If your marker is 20 years old, it might not work quite as well. Okay, now I'm taking some of my linen thread. I'm just going to wrap it round, but I'm going to stick it down. Wrap it round twice, I think. And I want it to go between those two. Actually, no, I don't. I want it to go in the middle there. All right. So I might just wrap it round once. No, twice will be right. See, this is a let's just see how you go card. Yeah, that's exactly where I want it. So, normally what I would do is I would grab a glue dot and I would put the glue dot under my knot. But since I was a little bit uncertain of what I was going to be doing, I'm going to try and create this knot without a glue dot. Well, it's reasonably okay. All right. I'm not going to cut it off yet because I'm going to stick this down. Now, if you wanted to, you could give it a bit of extra dimension by my glue's finished. You could give it a bit of extra dimension by sticking dimensionals on the back. Okay, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to stick it straight down. So you can see the cards coming together. It's not the most amazing card on the planet, but you can see how it uses up those scraps so you're not wasting it. Because let's face it, cardstock costs a lot of money, and we invest a lot of money in our cardstock, so we may as well use as much of it as we can. So I'm just going to grab a little piece of Very Vanilla, and I could move this down a bit if I wanted, just wriggle it. Okay, I'll grab a piece of Very Vanilla, and might also grab some dimensionals. Okay, so I've got my piece of Very Vanilla. This is just a scrap piece. I'll grab the With Sympathy stamp from the Special Moments Celebration set. And I actually have this card I have in mind for my ex-husband, because he lost his mother recently, and she's the grandmother of my daughter, and she's a lovely lady, so he wouldn't appreciate flowers and all of that sort of thing, but he would appreciate a handmade card. And despite us not being married, he's a pretty good dad for my daughter, and I think giving him a card's the right thing to do. So I've just stamped. Normally I would put under my stamp, and I didn't stamp that properly, but luckily we have a magical other side. Normally I would put my piercing mat or a mouse pad or something underneath my clear photopolymer stamps, but sometimes the words do stamp better on a harder surface. So I'm really happy with the With Sympathy now. I'm just going to trim that off. I think I even managed to get it straight. And so your card doesn't need to be all bells and whistles. You can just have it fairly plain and simple. That's a bit straight. Anyway, I'm just going to put a fancy end on it. I'll just want to cut the end off. And use my sponge dauber here. Make sure it's the same distance from each end. And I'm just going to sponge around the edge of this in the crumb cake. So even though I have used crumb cake on this, it's a very monochromatic card. It doesn't have, like, the crumb cake isn't a feature, it's just to enhance what is already there. Okay. It's a bit tricky trying to use this. I'll cut off these hairy bits for now, because I don't want to throw it out before I order some new ones. So it's sponge is so much better when there's no hairy bits on it. Okay. Yeah. The reason I didn't use the saying from the Ranunculus Romance set is because I actually don't own it, and I had been using it when a friend came over. I'm just going to also put a bit of green on this as well. And you know what? I sponged the wrong side. How silly was I? Anyway, that's all right. Okay, that's easy fixed. Just need to trim off a little bit more. Yeah, that's where you have to pay attention to what you're doing and not just chat. Put a little bit more on the end there. Yeah, that's what happens when they're also back and forth from each other. So yeah, so got my with sympathy. So now it's just a matter of working out where we're going to put it. Right. So I think put right there underneath the ribbon. Or underneath the bow. It's a pretty good place for it. Or I could put it on an angle, or I could put it over here, but I think the near the bow is the right place for me. Right, so now all I need to do is just grab my embellishments and even though it's for a man, I think it needs bling. Even if it's just, actually, we'll change that bling. We'll use some metal. So I store all of my bling in a little folder, and then I can find what I want. And I really like these. These are carried over. They're the brushed metallic adhesive back dots. So you've got gold, you've got copper, and then you've got this pewter, and the pewter really blends in with the Mossy Meadow. Sorry, I've got that a bit far down. I'm just trying to think where it might fit. I did originally think in the middle of the leaves, but I don't like that. So I'm going to pop them. I'm going to pop 2. Now normally I do things in groups of 3. Just going to pop 2 there. So they can sort of be like little rivets. And I'm going to pop a big one in the corner at the top. So that they look like they're sort of holding it together. Now, as I said, I'm making this up on the fly. I didn't do a sketch. I just had in my head, this might work. And I'm quite happy with that. And I might, because I like doing things in odd numbers, and I've got 6 on there now, I might just do an extra one here. Sorry, I've got 6 embellishments on. I might just do an extra one. So I've got my odd number. And yeah, so that is the card I made using the negative parts of the Ranunculus Romance die cuts. Now, if you want to get this as a bundle, you get the stamp set and the die cuts, and it's $87.25. If you added in your brushed metallic adhesive dots, that would take your total celebration total over $90, which would allow you to choose from a whole host of celebration items for free that you could use to complement your card. So I hope you enjoyed today's card, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, happy creating!